Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Fiona Famulat, President at the Vancouver Regional Construction Association, and I want to thank all of you for joining us at today's infrastructure series. The event, or the series, is designed to provide large procurers of construction with the opportunity to share their capital and maintenance programs, as well as upcoming projects and how we can all access those bidding opportunities. So this has been an event that we've been hosting since June of 2019, and as a result of COVID, we're now hosting these monthly. So we can see some regulars on the line, and there's always some new folks joining us. So welcome to everybody, and I can see that there's a couple of board members on the line today too. So welcome to you as well. Before I make some formal or more formal opening comments, I want to welcome today's sponsor, who is MNP. And at all times, and especially during COVID, during the pandemic, your collective and generous support allows us to serve you in a variety of different ways. So thank you for your continued support, and thank you to MNP today for your enthusiastic approach to this event. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kelly Taylor, Business Advisor of the Real Estate and Construction Division at MNP. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Fiona. So just have a couple words here just before I'll hand it over to Fiona and UBC. So MNP is a proud sponsor today for the VRCA virtual division meeting. For those of you who don't know me, MNP is the 5th largest firm in Canada and the 2nd largest in BC. Like Fiona said, I'm a partner within MNP's real estate and construction niche. As everyone knows, this is a difficult time, and we understand and are concerned with the construction industry and how they will recover and adjust as a result of this crisis. As most of you are aware, the government has made available many different programs. However, after talking to many of the construction companies, at least in within my bubble, many do not feel the need to take advantage of these programs. However, there may be cases where these companies may qualify and should take advantage of these programs. They are, very time consuming. It's very stressful times, so not everyone is looking into these programs very closely, but I think there is opportunity for construction and business in general to look at these programs very carefully, even though they are still working and contracts and bidding is still happening. There's still opportunities to take advantage of these government programs. And lastly, as the construction industry has a significant impact to our economy, the recovery and the success of the construction industry is very important to us at MNP and to the economy. We are very proud of what the construction sector and the VRCA has been doing during the pandemic, and we see a lot of opportunity in the future. I would also like to take the time to thank UBC for hosting this webinar. And over to you, Fiona. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you again to you and your team for your continued support of VRCA. You've been a long-standing champion, and we appreciate all of that, so thank you. So moving on, I just want to build really on what Kelly has just said there. Our world has changed quite significantly since March the 11th, which is when the pandemic was declared. It's hard to imagine, hard to believe that it's 19 weeks ago already. So thank you to everybody on the call or the video today, and also to everybody who's not able to make it today, for your leadership, for pivoting quickly to implement enhanced safety protocols on site to keep your workers safe and the construction industry busy, so that we can position or help to position BC for its economic recovery. As you know, we're now in phase 3. Your diligence has mitigated transmission of the virus on site and has resulted in no outbreaks on site. And I just want you to think about that. That's an extraordinary result. And I actually took a quick peek at the WorkSafe BC statistics just this morning to report back to you. So as of July the 15th, which is the latest statistics, the total number of COVID-related claims from 13 industries is a total of 698. 305 of those have been allowed, and only one comes from the construction industry. So think about that. 698 in total. Now, of that total, construction only had 13 claims as an industry, and some were rejected, some are required no adjudication, etc., etc. So, but 305 across 13 industries have been allowed, and only one comes from the construction industry. So that is to be recognized, celebrated, applauded. And I've mentioned this before, the government has recognized the industry time and time again for its leadership and the way in which it is navigating COVID-19. It's holding us out, it's holding the industry out as a leader on how to do it, and pointing other industries towards construction as an example. So thank you sincerely for everything that you're doing. Now, in recent days, we've seen a slight increase in the number of cases in British Columbia. Unfortunately, they've been community outbreaks, I guess, as we begin to expand our bubbles. I want to say now is not the time to relax. Now is the time to double down on the safety that you're implementing on site, as well as around your friends and family. We need to help keep BC's curve flat. And please keep up the good work that you've demonstrated so far, and please continue to lead by example. We have to get through this, and we have to flatten the curve. So thank you for everything that you're doing in that regard. So then moving on to economic recovery, which is the good part. In order for that to happen, we need businesses to be open. We need employees or workers to be employed, and that means that we need projects to be announced and we need tenders to be released. Now, in our recent industry survey, our members shared with us that a number of projects have been postponed or cancelled. Tenders are coming out more slowly than they were before, and many are relying on government financial programs and the prospect of infrastructure stimulus spending to get through the pandemic. And we've seen some stimulus come through already. There's going to be more from the federal government, likely in the fall. But there's lots of work here in British Columbia, and that's the reason for the infrastructure series. We want to bring you the direct contact to the owners who are making it happen. So we'll continue to bring you monthly infrastructure series. The beauty of it is you get to connect firsthand with the owners at the podium. You can ask questions in the chat facility, which is at the bottom of your screen there, the text box. Please ask questions throughout the presentation. You won't be disrupting anybody. We'll make sure that as many of your questions are answered as possible. And for those that aren't, we'll take them offline and we'll make sure that you get answers. And you'll also receive a recording of this presentation along with the presentation deck within 24 hours. So this time tomorrow, you'll be sitting in your office or your home with this presentation on YouTube so that you can look at it and take it all in at a leisurely pace. So don't feel like you have to scribble furiously for the next 90 minutes or so. So let's get started. So I'm thrilled to welcome today the University of British Columbia Infrastructure Development team, as well as the team, or one of the team, from UBC Properties Trust to the infrastructure series today. And I'm not going to describe what those organizations do, because I know that they're going to give you those descriptions in a minute or two, but I do want to share a very quick personal story. When I began working with VRCA, when I took the position on back in September of 2013, a long time ago, I was very fortunate to have my first tour, my first site tour at UBC, and it was Craig Shira who took me around the UBC site. They were in the process of building the student building, and I was able to see the Nest, which is the student. I guess it's one of the lounges. I'm not quite sure. In the middle of the building, and I thought at that point, wow, what an amazing structure. And then 3 years later, it actually received a VRCA Gold Awards of Excellence. So I'm not saying that I'm the lucky charm, but it was great to see my first site visit come through as a Gold Award winner 3 years later. So thank you, Craig, for that. That's going to be that's always a good memory. And I really appreciate that. There's been many site tours since. So I would like to introduce to you today our three presenters. Aaron Mogerman, Director Project Services at UBC Infrastructure Development. And he is accompanied by his colleague, Jim Onderwater, Senior Procurement Officer at UBC Infrastructure Development. And then we're pleased to welcome Craig Shira. We all know Craig. He is a Senior Development Manager at UBC Properties Trust. So welcome, gentlemen. We really appreciate you taking time to prepare for this today and to give us your time this afternoon. I will hand over to you. I think, Aaron, you're going to kick us off. I'm going to go on video mute. And if I have questions, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box. And if I appear, it's because I've got questions to ask. So over to you, Aaron. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. I've got a bit of an echo. Oh, there we go, it's gone. Hello, everybody. I haven't done this before, so it's a unique experience for me. Hopefully it turns out, the virtual podium. I'll just give you a brief idea of how we'll structure the presentation. I'll start off. Jim and I will talk about the UBC generally, broadly. And specifically, Jim will discuss the projects that Project Services does and how to get access to those projects and what we have coming up in the near term. And then we'll hand it over to Craig, who will take the last part of the presentation and talk about some of the projects that Properties Trust has on deck and some of the things they're just completing. So basically 3 parts to it. And yeah, I'll start off with a little family album. This is my favorite part of the presentation. I've done this once before. And it's always interesting for me to see these. There's a series of 3 slides. It's like it's like when you're a parent and you got your sleeves rolled up and you're changing diapers, and then all of a sudden you're doing homework, and then all of a sudden kids off to college, and you forget what it was like. And these photos really remind you what it was like. I mean, it used to be a clear cut. And this is, less than 100 years ago. And if we flip to the next slide, it became a shopping mall. But you start to see it. And then the last slide here, this is us today. It's just this enormous change that's happened. And it's happened right kind of underneath us and as we're working on it. And even for me, having been here 10 or 12 years now, I forget until I walk around how much change has happened in the last 10 years. And many of you, I've seen the participant list, were part of that change. And it's really exciting. It's quite incredible. Maybe the next slide, David. So this just gives you a feel for the scale of the place. And when we were rehearsing this or going over it, Craig mentioned that Craig, what did you say, the size of Vancouver? Or can you clarify that?
Yeah, I think the overall area of UBC is about the same as the area of downtown Vancouver if you exclude Stanley Park. So if you think about the density of downtown, UBC is the same area.
Yeah, so it's so loaded with potential. Large place. We have a neighborhood here. We have our own planning department. We have our own utilities. We have our own, as many of you know who have worked out here, our own permitting group. We have full-time residents in the amount of about 1,100 people and growing all the time. We have part-time residents in the form of students and a daytime population that's the size of Kamloops. And you can see the dollar amount that's spent to keep this place operating. It's quite enormous and quite an accomplishment. So every time you cross Blanca Street, you're kind of entering this new world, and it feels sort of like it doesn't exist when you're in the city, but it's certainly a going concern out here. So next slide. So as far as the capital program, I'm talking the building capital program, we sort of have 3 categories of work that we work in. Our routine capital program is that maintenance work that Fiona talked about. And when you have a place that has 300 plus buildings, that's a big budget. So we have $50 million a year, almost $50 million a year that we spend strictly on deferred maintenance. And that comes in many forms. It comes in, swapping out air handling units and redoing roofs, full envelope work, and our renewal program, which again, many of you have been involved in, where we take an entire building and do a bottom-up renewal. So it's basically taking one of these old buildings that you might have seen in the 1971 picture and turning it into a 2020 level building. So all that happens within our routine capital program, and that's managed by the project services group. Again, then we have the what we call the business as usual, which is an ongoing stream of departmental work, and often that's grant driven. Researchers will get a large piece of equipment, an MRI or some kind of, often we don't even know what it is. It's complicated research equipment, and we're tasked with taking on renovating a lab or a space, and that's very diverse. We have, as you know, we have theaters out here, we have opera house, we have state-of-the-art labs, we have classrooms. So very diverse amount of work. We also do a lot of work for our partners in the ancillaries. So that's food services, parking, athletics. So there's a massive amount of building infrastructure that they're managing and maintaining that's getting upgraded constantly. And then we have our 5-year capital plan, and that's really where properties, Craig will speak to many of these projects, where we have the large institutional projects that come along at a slower pace, but certainly larger scale. And those are constantly turning away too. And like I said, near the end of the presentation, Craig will walk us through those. So that's kind of the 3 buckets of work. And then we'll go to the next slide. And I mentioned this so this is how we're organized. Project services does the renovation, modernization, and renewal work. So that's typically that lion's share. In fact, all of that maintenance budget, plus a significant amount of the research grants and so forth going to renovation. We have like I mentioned, a large utility infrastructure here, basically that of a city. A lot of the work we do is managing and upgrading that utility infrastructure, and in fact, innovating. Some of you may have been involved in our district energy projects. I think at one point, we're the biggest system in Canada, at least, if not North America. We converted our steam system to a district energy system and built one main boiler plant, or in the process of another biomass expansion of our biomass plant. So certainly modernized and capable of some pretty substantial sustainability initiatives now that we have the system in place. And then a lot of electrical infrastructure that we're constantly upgrading as well. And we'll speak specifically to some of those projects coming up, Jim will. And then we have, like I mentioned, our routine capital maintenance projects, and that's the nuts and bolts of just keeping this place from leaking and keeping the air moving and keeping the lights on, which is no small feat. And then we have properties, and like I said, Craig will speak to that, but those are the large projects and the mixed use, and also the properties that has a large involvement in developing the market housing, which is a whole thing on its own. I'm not sure if Craig will speak to that, but that's an entirely different initiative. Next slide. So we've just taken a very small sampling of what we have going on right now. I'm going to turn it over to Jim to speak specifically to these projects, and then more specifically to how we procure work and what might be available coming up. I started to think about trying to make a list of everything we have on the docket right now, and it would have just been so small nobody would have been able to see it. So again, this is just a sample of the types of projects we're doing and the people we're working with currently on those projects. But the list is extensive, and it's always changing. So Jim will talk to you about how to access that.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for showing up. So as you can see, there's quite a few major projects that we're currently working on. They're basically divided into 3 different bundles. One is the large renewals, others is the major utility infrastructure that Aaron was discussing, and then we also have large renovations and modernizations. So as you can see, a big part of what we're doing is seismic upgrades for the buildings, over 12 buildings that we're looking at right now, and it's in the pre-design stage. So a lot of our buildings are are not meeting seismic, so we're having to upgrade those. The other buildings that we're doing, the McLeod Building Renewal and Museum of Anthropology, those are also seismic upgrades, but of course they're complete, renewal projects as well. So there you can see where we're at and the design teams and the build teams that we're using. The McLeod Building Renewal is just about going to go out for bid from Heather Bray. So when we're doing these types of work and we're working with the construction manager, they provide us with the information and we post that information onto BC Bid. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with BC Bid, but if you're not, I invite you to look at BC Bid, and with that you can have a small subscription. For a small subscription fee, you can set up your company to receive notices based on the commodities that you're interested in. The other one that we're doing is the Museum of Anthropology Great Hall Renewal. That's being driven by a seismic renewal, but we're basically redoing the Great Hall that you see in many of the pictures of UBC. So that work is about to begin as well, and we are doing some early works on that currently, but there will be more bidding going out for that as well, and the construction manager for that is Smith Brothers and Wilson. And we're also just finishing up the Buchanan Tower, and we are using Kinetic Construction for that as our construction manager. It should be noted that when we're doing construction management, the majority of the time we flip that into a general contract at some point in the process. Some of the utility infrastructure that Aaron was mentioning is we're doing the Uni substation renewal, and we're working with S&C Lavalin on that, and we are just in the evaluation stage right now, so we will be awarding that shortly. So the bids have been received, and stay tuned for the award notice. With the transportation test bed, now this is a hydrogen fueling station, one of, I believe, the second one that's going to be built in British Columbia, and this is a test bed project, and the first phase has been awarded to Harborview Electric, and we'll be working on that for the next little while. Some other large renovations that we're doing and modernizations is the pulp and paper lab renovations, been awarded to Kinetic. And we're looking at a completion in the summer of this summer to complete that project. Other things that we do is the Chan Center for Performing Arts, roofing upgrades. We're in phase 2 of that project, and that's just been recently awarded to Smith Brothers and Wilson. And I just believe yesterday it was posted on to BC Bid for roofing contractors. Then we're looking for the Center of Brain Health. That's in the hospital at UBC that we share with Coastal Health. And that is out to bid right now. It's a fairly large project, and we're hoping to be awarding it shortly and for completion again in the summer of 2020. Another item that we're looking at is the Brock Hall East Wing envelope proposal. And that's about to be going out to bid shortly. Next. So basically at UBC, we are a public entity and we have to bid according to the procurement guidelines handed to us by the BC government. For any large projects over $200,000, large construction contracts, we have to publicly tender or bid that. When we do that, we go out to BC Bid, and basically all we're doing is we're putting a notice out to BC Bid, And that notice is telling everyone to go to the UBC bonfire portal. And from there, all the information you can find or necessary for that project is found on the bonfire portal. And so I encourage you to sign up. The bonfire portal is free, and you can look at all the bids that are out there. When we go out for a request for tender, it's usually a one-stage process for relatively small projects, anywhere from 200K up to about the $1 million mark or around that. We don't really get into much bigger ones than that for the request for tenders. When we do sometimes get into bigger ones, we go to a two-stage process. So we'll be using a request for supplier qualifications, and then from there we'll pare down to a select group that we would then go out to a request for tender. We also, for the larger projects and the longer term projects, we go out for requests for proposal for construction managers. We mainly do a construction manager at risk, but sometimes we have done just a construction manager only. A few times as well, we've gone out for a request for proposal for design build. Again, all of these are going out to BC Bid, but you'll be directed to the bonfire portal for all the pertinent details. For smaller projects in construction under 200K, we normally just go out to what we call select tenders, and we pick our general contractors, construction managers, or sometimes specialty trades, and we just do an in-house select tender. So if you're interested in getting onto that list, you can contact myself, and I can provide you with the people that are doing that type of work. We also do occasionally go out to bid for specialty products. One of the main things that we buy is a lot of office furniture and that type of stuff. So that's basically it. And I look forward to hearing from you on our proposals in the future, and seeing you at site visits where we provide you with a project briefing and show you around with the work that we're hoping to perform. So from here, I'm going to hand it on to Craig to talk to you a little bit more about Properties Trust. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. Really excited to be back at VRCA, and on this side of things, I wish it could be in person. I looked at the list and I saw a lot of familiar names, and wish I could see everyone's faces, but we look forward to doing that in the future. I was looking at my calendar, and Fiona might need to correct me if I'm wrong, but typically the third Thursday of July, we're all on a boat somewhere for a U40 boat cruise. So sad we can't do it this year, but I look forward to doing that in the future. Fiona, are you going to correct me? Is it normally?
Yeah, you're right. It is the date. We're going to have to do it virtually this year, I think.
Okay, well, I look forward to the Mai Tais in our Zoom meetings. That'll be good.
There we go. Thank you.
So I am from UBC Properties Trust. We kind of act as the owner's project manager and developer for most of the major capital projects at both the Vancouver and Kelowna campuses, as well as other UBC facilities throughout the province. For example, I've got a job in Oliver, BC right now, which is great for wine season, and then Robson Square and other facilities. So next slide. So UBC Properties Trust started doing the institutional projects back in 2002. One of the other sides of our business that we do is, of course, the sort of market housing development. So those of you that are familiar with UBC, the area south of 16th Avenue is called Westbrook Village. And just a little bit to the north of 16th, there's another, the original development was sort of Hampton Place. So we have acted as land developers on behalf of the university, and a lot of the proceeds associated with those developments go into the endowment fund for the university, contributing to the university's wealth. So back in 2002, we got involved in the institutional projects and started with the life sciences building, which if you've never been in that building, I would encourage you to go and take a look at the atrium, because your jaw will be on the floor. UBC Properties Trust always procures via construction management model. Unlike our counterparts at Project Services, we will never flip to a lump sum agreement. It kind of speaks to the collaborative nature of Properties Trust. We want to ensure that RCM is really our agent, and we empower them to be our agent and assist us in controlling the construction through all phases. And we really enjoy having them at the design table as well. Nothing is more fun for me than watching a superintendent just mark up a set of architect drawings with red pen and point out simple things that they may not consider. At the end of the day, all the projects that we build are turned over to UBC and are sort of maintained and operated by the UBC folks. And then, eventually once a renovation is required, they end up back in Aaron's court and their team looks at the renovation. So a bit of a relationship between the two groups, just because we know that UBC will receive all of the assets we deliver. And so it's important to us that we deliver a high quality product that otherwise Aaron calls me and tells me where we went wrong and what I could do better next time. So next slide. So this is just some examples of some of our recently completed projects. The Brock Commons Tallwood, which was the tallest mass timber building in the world at the time of its completion. Urban One was the construction manager on that one, and it was a very well celebrated building. The Aquatic Center, designed by Acton Austri and built by Heather Bray and a team of trades, is one of the landmark buildings on campus that you can see from Westbrook. The Exchange Residence was our most recently completed student housing project. It's kind of a bit of a street wall with townhomes at grade, or city homes, I think they're actually called, and then varying height towers, as well as the bus loop goes in and underneath that facility as well. So if you're taking the bus out to UBC, there's now a sort of a covered arrival. And then the Sports Medicine Center, which was it was a bit of a bolt-on to the existing ice arena, and this is a facility that looks at moving forward sports medicine. So IMS, I think, is the little needles you get jabbed into you to release muscle tension. They study that there, so don't walk in if you're not excited about that idea. And they've got a physio clinic at grade. Next slide. A couple of the projects that are under construction. The one on the left is the Art Student Center, which Turner Construction is building on our behalf and our current construction managers. And then Pacific Residence, which are being built by Heather Bray, and it involves 5 separate buildings. The dark one in the image there will be a hotel type building. So it'll be, I think it's one of the first residences that we've had that has sort of an air conditioning model from the start, but we're certainly going to build that going forward. And then just at the bottom, we mentioned that there's many more miscellaneous student housing and community services, renovations, campus redevelopments, and market development projects. So we at Properties Trust are often approached by the student housing folks to assist with some of their renovations. So we have seemingly an endless amount of work that, for example, last year we did a renovation at the Totem Commons entryway, and that was executed by Etro. It was executed very well, and really now it's almost like walking into a museum. It's got a lot of celebration to the Indigenous communities and great artwork throughout the space. But those are the type of projects, we talk about the 5-year capital plan and sort of seeing what's coming down the pipe. Some of these renovations, I'm sure it's the same for Aaron. We'll get a phone call and be like, hey, can you guys look at this for us? And it's a project within 3 months, assuming the funding's all there. Next slide. Yeah, so this is what everyone's really interested in. So the upcoming projects. So I'll do the images first because I think those ones are easy to explain. So BC Research 9, we call it BCR 9. It's for our market development team. It's intended to be a faculty and staff housing development. There's also another project, BCR 8, which is same architect, ZGF. We haven't yet selected the construction manager for that project, so keep your eye out for that. And if you want more information about those projects, I'm happy to chat about those later. Brock Commons Phase 2. So we had initially tendered the North Tower, and then the UBC board made the decision to put that development on pause due to the COVID. We believe that the project will be restarted come September board, but we will wait until that is finalized. If it does come back online, the South Tower, which is the tower on the right-hand side, that kind of looks like it's got the darker bar building at the top. There's a lot of trade opportunity for that South Tower, so that's one to keep an eye out on. The You can see in the background the Tallwood building. It's kind of a similar layout. We think that we've got a real easy to build type of methodology with the student housing program, and single corridor with suites on either side. It's if you've built any sort of market apartments in Vancouver, then we believe that it's the same sort of skills that you would need to build student housing. So often we hear people that ask us, can I still bid on student housing if I have no student housing experience? And the answer is yes. If you've built condos in Vancouver, you are probably just as qualified to build our student housing program. So bottom left is one that I'm excited about. It's the new rec center project. I'll be working on that one. It's meant to have sort of 3 gymnasiums, a huge fitness facility, outdoor fitness, and we're just getting going. So the architect hasn't been selected yet, and the construction management RFP is currently out on BC Bid. I believe it closes next Wednesday. So for all the general contractors, we hope to see some submissions, and please reach out to us if you have any questions via the RFP email address. Other big projects coming up for UBC Properties Trust is the School of Biomedical Engineering. That one we've selected the architect, and it will be PATCOW, which I'm sure many know. PATCOW did the Audain Art Gallery in North Van, and there is also there's the job up in Whistler. Anyway, PATCOW, great architects. We're very excited to have them back at the campus. And we are still in the process of selecting our construction manager for that one. I think the submissions were so good, the team is having to be very thorough and review them. So we appreciate everyone who did submit for that project. The Gateway building is underway. We have selected Urban One as the construction manager, and the architect is Perkins and Will. That one we're probably about 12 months from bringing the offering to the market for trade. But over the next 12 months, Urban One will be looking for trade support and helping with crafting the budget to ensure that we maintain that $120 million budget. And then the Pacific Engage Courtyard is a great opportunity for anyone in the landscape sort of realm. It's a large landscape opportunity, and it's going to be exciting. It's part of that Pacific Residence project, but it'll be sort of a standalone, unique element at the campus that we think is going to be enjoyed by students for many years to come. So good legacy there for someone. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. So thank you very much for attending. I know, on behalf of Aaron and myself and Jim, we really appreciate everyone that signed up for this event, and we want to open up for lots of questions. So.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Jim. That's quite a laundry list of projects, my goodness, and I know that you haven't presented all of them because there are too many. So I've got some questions actually for each of you, and in the process, I don't see any questions from the audience yet, but I'm sure they're thinking. So while they're thinking and typing in their questions, a question to Jim, perhaps first of all. Jim, how can we get our hands on the complete list of project opportunities? I know that you've just touched the tip of the iceberg today. How do our members get our hands on that?
Are you looking at future opportunities or current opportunities?
Both.
Well, the current opportunities, you can view those on the UBC Bonfire portal.
Right.
And the future opportunities, that's a very good question. Normally, I don't get a whole lot of notice on the new opportunities that are coming up because they get handed to our project managers, and then they work with myself or my colleague to go out to bid. So there's not a whole lot of I don't know in advance a whole lot of what's coming up, and perhaps Aaron, Aaron sometimes has a bit better notice because he's on the capital planning, but it doesn't come to procurement until the job is actually required. Right. So Aaron, are you able to elaborate?
Well, I could speak. We have a list of the capital planning projects. So that's that routine capital program. And those projects are in various stages of development, pre-design, design, tender, and construction. That list wouldn't be that valuable to this community as far as a tool to project exactly when opportunities are coming. because it's constantly changing. As budgets develop and as timelines change and as user needs change and as, information comes in. So I think it would almost be more confusing than anything else, because one might anticipate a project's coming next month and it actually doesn't show up for 6 months, or vice versa. I think, the best tool is when those projects are ready for tender, we know they're in the pipeline. Then Jim is the best resource, and Jim and his partner Jillian. I mean, it's staying close to them, and they're always available, as am I, if people are curious of what's coming down the line. But always available to kind of say, okay, here's what's in the pipeline right now, and that's typically going to give you 6 weeks to 2 months notice on those projects.
That's very helpful, though, and helpful to know. And it's like, well, the industry is dependent on relationships, and the beauty of the series that we have going on with all of our owners is we're able to connect our members directly with the presenters on the day. So I believe at the end of this PowerPoint deck, there's your email addresses. So you may be flooded with new contacts, but that's what you want, right?
That's what we want. Absolutely,
very.
Those relationships are extremely valuable to us too. So it's a mutual gain. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you both. I've got a few more questions, but I see that we have one in the chat line. So this is from Gareth Maybury. Gareth is with Pomerleau. And he is, well, Pomerleau and many of our members are very interested in working with UBC, as you know. They understand that there's a dependency on past experience working on the UBC campus as part of the RFP, RFQ process. And that was actually going to be one of my questions. If you haven't worked with UBC in the past, how do contractors, small, medium, and large, get their foot in the door with UBC?
Well, I can speak to that from our side, and maybe Craig, you can do the same from
sure,
properties. I mean, I'd say I've spent a long time in the construction industry as well, working for a general contractor, and I remember sometimes it was an investment, right? So I would say, and starting small, and proving oneself, and building that those relationships you're talking about, Fiona, but also that portfolio of work. So I would say, keep trying, right? The right opportunity will come up at the right time, and don't be afraid to start small. And proving yourself on those early projects is just going to start the snowball rolling, right? There's contractors I see in this participant list who two years ago weren't working on campus, who are now here all the time, and it's really just because they made the investment in coming out and building that relationship with us.
I just want to expand on that. We have changed our criteria for that slightly. It's no longer that you need UBC experience. We are looking for is post-secondary experience. Working in a post-secondary environment is quite a bit different than many other environments. So we've changed that exclusivity to UBC to now post-secondary experience. So
yeah, and so building off what's been said, for example, the Art Student Center, which is just now moving into construction, UBC gave us the direction that they wanted it to focus on emerging firms when we were procuring the design team as well as the construction manager. So from the design team side, I think we had 5 consultants that had never worked at UBC before, including the construction manager, Turner. So Turner had done a job for project services, but never a major capital project. I actually think it was Turner's first greenfield institutional project in this market. So we're not afraid of trying new people. Like Aaron says, it is sort of a relationship-based. We don't have time to reach out to everybody. So when people reach out to us, we're happy to kind of fill in the information and keep people posted on what's going on. And so just to keep your ear to the ground and sign up for that BC bid alert. I often tell the construction managers, if you see an architect expression of interest, assume that we're going to be procuring a construction manager in the next 2 to 3 months afterwards. So there's hints that we try to leave that will let the market know that we're looking for services. And we we absolutely want to grow the stable of people that are interested in working for us. So we're interested to talk with everybody.
That's great insight, Craig. Thank you. And thank you to Jim and also to Aaron for your insight there. Hopefully, Gareth, that answers your question, and good luck. I think it's well said, Craig. It's important to be proactive and to keep your ear to the ground. And BC Bid and Bid Central, our bidding opportunities platform, are connected. So if you happen to be a subscriber of Bid Central, then you will automatically get the content in BC Bid, which will then push you to Bonfire. So please make good use of that subscription. Okay, another question from the chat line. What is the best way to find out which architect is working on a UBC project? Who wants to take that one? Again,
we kind of have, we don't necessarily always allow the architects to announce that they're working for UBC projects. It's, again, sort of one of those, depending on the project itself, we try and keep certain details, until the time is right. But again, the development managers from Properties Trust are usually happy to let the market know who has been selected after the selection has been done. It's sometimes a 2 to 3 month process to actually select an architect because it involves a committee of folks and interviews, and so it's just because you see the EOI go out doesn't necessarily mean that a selection will be made immediately thereafter. But I mean, I would again encourage people to reach out to myself or anyone from the Properties Trust team on a project specific to find out who the architect is.
And our answer is exactly the same. Really, it's we probably have 50 projects going at a time here. So, if I don't know or Jim doesn't know, certainly the project manager does, and we can refer you directly to them, and they'll be happy to share that information. To Craig's point, assuming the selections happen and it's publicly available.
Right, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat line. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. And maybe this is a question for Aaron. You mentioned that there's a lot of seismic upgrades happening. What stage are you at in your seismic upgrade program? Are you able to?
I can, yeah. We've been working with a firm out of San Francisco called Arup, and we've been working with them for about 2 years, and it started in a real big, broad picture resilience study of the campus. And we completed that about a year ago, and now we're going building by building and really doing a more detailed analysis of each one of our buildings. And we're just completing that second phase of the process, which will really identify which buildings are at highest risk and what the mitigating strategies are for each one of those buildings. And it really shows the liability to the board and the university. What is our resilience liability? And then it's a function of prioritizing and synergizing, right? And so part of this renewal program gives us an opportunity to go in, like Jim said, and do either a targeted or a full seismic upgrade. Sometimes the option is knock the building down and let Craig build a new one. And sometimes we can go in and really do a kind of, screw some bookshelves to the walls or stick in some steel structure and bring the building to a level that's, better than it was before, which is really about, how many lives can we save? So we're in the second phase of that very large study. It's been extremely comprehensive, and that should generate a list of projects. And really then it comes down to how quickly we could fund that. Because I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty long list and a pretty high price tag attached to it.
I would imagine so, yeah. But it's good to know. I mean, it sounds like you're just at the beginning of the seismic upgrade journey. So there's a long tail to this process. And I would encourage everybody on the line, once you get your foot in the door, do good work, which I know you will, and you're likely to be at UBC for some time, I would think. Mm-hmm. So good, thank you, Aaron. That's a really helpful.
And if anybody's interested, I think if you can Google it through the, you can find that report online. It's a 300-page. It's quite interesting. Very, very highly technical report on the condition of UBCs seismically.
Interesting. We have a question, and I'm just going to answer it right off the bat here. Are we able to get Aaron, Jim, and Craig's email here? Yes, you are. You're going to get their emails. I believe it's at the end of this PowerPoint deck. So rest easy that you'll be able to connect with these gentlemen directly. And the three of you are going to make some new friends, I think, over the next.
And I'd encourage people to reach out via LinkedIn as well. I really like to utilize that tool as a way of tracking contacts and just what people are doing and the successes that they have. And we like to post a lot of our projects and just kind of general awareness on LinkedIn. But if you're going to send me a LinkedIn request, please add a comment like, hey, I saw you on the VRCA infrastructure development. Don't just like cold call me, because I sometimes ignore those if I've never heard of people.
Okay, that's good advice. Yes, hashtag VRCA would be good. I have a question here that just came through on text. So it's a potential question. It's likely for Craig. Actually, it's very similar. I'll let this question stand. I had one similar. So Brock Commons number 1 was Tallwood building, mass timber.
Yes.
Brock Commons 2, is that also going to be mass timber? That's question 1. And then question 2 is, how has COVID-19 impacted project schedules, deferrals, etc.?
Yeah, so Brock Commons Phase 1 was a huge success as a mass timber project, and that was the university made the decision to pursue that as, I don't want to call it an experiment per se, but it took a lot of resources from all parties, including campus community planning, our sort of authority having jurisdiction to build this building. It was not in the building code, and we had to test systems and validate systems and prove that it was a viable, it could be done. And we did it, and we were very happy. However, it had a premium cost to it. So for us as public money, we kind of look at the economics and best bang for the buck. And at this point, we still see mass timber as a bit of a premium, and we try and have a lot of wood and look at the wood first initiative for our projects to make sure that it's included. But to do a full mass timber building, it's still just the economics don't make sense. And I would say we look at it on every single project. We're often asked, is the next one going to be mass timber? And to date, the answer is no, unfortunately, but it's something we always are measuring. The COVID question, so like I mentioned, Brock Commons Phase 2 was a development that was sort of on the strategic priorities for a while, and we had Pacific residents going already, and it was further along in sort of the development stream, and the decision was made to put Brock Commons Phase 2 on hold due to the COVID and just the uncertainty around, I think, admissions and just how the world is going to operate post-COVID. So that was the only impact we've seen on the institutional side. On the market development side, which again I think is of interest to the members because it's same trades. We had a few projects that were lined up, and I think 3 of those have been put on hold until further notice. So much like the other development community, we are looking at sort of the needs, and with immigration potentially slowing down, the rate at which people are looking at real estate in UBC has slowed, and as a result, we've put some projects on hold.
So on that point, that was going to be my question. Actually, one of my questions to you is, what's, from your perspective on the market housing side, what was the perspective on the market? So to that point, I'm just going to be shameless and say that on August the 12th, we're hosting a division meeting, Craig, so you should attend perhaps. And it's all going to be about what's happening on the private side of the market. We know we have a pretty good read on what's happening on the public infrastructure side, but we're not quite so clear on what's happening on the private side. And we've got Jason Kieselbach from CBRE. He's going to present his perspective, along with Michael Geller from SFU. He's going to give us his perspective on immigration and future. Is it the same as it was pre-COVID? As well as Alan Haig from Impact Investing, and he's going to give us a perspective on what the finance industry, what the bankers are thinking, and hopefully connect the dots for us. So it's good to hear that. Well, it's not good to hear. I understand why you're putting things on hold, and it'll be good to hear the perspective from those 3 gentlemen on August the 12th.
Michael Geller is a legend. I would encourage anyone to attend. He is worth the price of admission alone. Michael Geller.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're looking for a full house that day too. It'll be another virtual session. I have another question here in the chat line, and it's for Craig. So with respect to RFPs that you receive for construction manager, any specific do's and don'ts that you notice? And aside from the price, what stands out, or what would you wish to see more of in proposals without giving away your trade secrets?
Please don't submit $0 pre-construction fee. That's never a path to success. You know, we like to pay for the services that are provided, and you know, there's kind of two phases to these capital projects for us. Being construction management, like I said earlier, we really like to rely on our CM as being our agent in the room throughout design. So there's a whole duration where the construction manager has staff and resources, and you know, I often say, like, someone who's, you know, a general superintendent, someone who's been in the field for a long time, who can look at drawings and just go, nope, that makes no sense, or it's going to cost you 4 times as much if you do it that way. And you know, practical advice that can help assist the design team and guide them towards the most economical solution. Those types of people, you know, they're again, their value is held so high. Throughout the pre-construction phase, we also request various different sort of budget updates based on the design packages. So, you know, 100% schematic design, we ask for a Class D estimate, and we do these steps in order to ensure that we're tracking on budget. You know, we also use that as an opportunity for the construction managers to tell us the quality of drawings. It's, you know, I think Properties Trust as an ownership group is someone who's a little bit more aligned with the trades and the construction as opposed to the design team, because you know, we know that they're the ones who are going to be executing on these drawings. So we want to hear the opinions of the trades and the construction managers, and we welcome their input and welcome them to the table through design. And then once we get going on the projects themselves, usually through the RFPs, you have to declare your staffing needs, and that's often where firms differentiate when we're doing the evaluation. So, you know, one firm might decide that this project needs 5 different superintendents and 6 project managers and an accounting staff on site. And another firm might say, well, they can get it done with a project manager, a coordinator, and a safety officer. So the burn rate per month of what each construction manager is going to be charging the university is sort of a metric that we look into. The fees are typically very competitive. It's construction management, so it's not the biggest differentiator, I would say, but certainly how firms staff the projects, and that's kind of our evaluation in a bit of a nutshell. So hopefully I didn't give away the secret sauce, but that's what we look at.
Thank you. I think what I'm hearing is to the audience, don't be afraid to have a value conversation, or a conversation about value. It's not about being the cheapest or the lowest bid. It's about how you can assist to drive value to your client, prospective client. So good, thank you. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to open it up to Aaron, to Jim, and to Craig, though. Do you have any particular questions that you would like to ask of the industry, since you have them on the line, or many of them on the line?
Aaron?
You know, it's always interesting to hear, you know, from those who have worked out here, you know, how we compare to other big institutions, where the big rubs are, where the frustrations lie. You know, I hear a lot about parking. I hear a lot about, you know, we can't make noise at these times. We want to accommodate, and we know, like I said earlier, how important it is that we have those industry partners, and that we're making sure they're profitable and that they're getting what they need from us, in addition to paying the bill, which we're always good for. So, I mean, if anybody has any suggestions, I'd open the floor to that, to hear, you know, hey, if you could work on parking, it would sure make life easier for us.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I mean, one of the things that we had put out to market not long ago was a sort of design assist for mechanical contractors for one of our major projects, and unfortunately we had 0 respondents. So, you know, we are always interested in meeting with folks on how do we engage with the trades to ensure our projects are successful. We were looking at design assist opportunities. We have to be careful, because we don't want to hire someone as a design assist role and then have them sort of be promised the work for the entire contract. So, you know, trying to get trade knowledge and during the design, because, you know, we again value it alongside our engineering partners, but, you know, still making it an open market scenario where everyone has the opportunity to bid on the work, which is the larger element of the contract. So that's something we're infinitely interested from hearing. And again, I'd echo Aaron's comments. For the CMs on the line, if you're taking a look at our RFPs and are scratching your head, asking yourself like, why would Craig ask for this? Please let us know. We're constantly refining our documents and constantly trying to improve things. Because of where we are located geographically, we don't want to make life harder on people. Like, we know that half the labor force is coming from sort of the Langley area or south of the Fraser, and we want to encourage people to work at UBC, not make life harder. So we're always receptive to feedback, and we're very approachable.
That's great advice. So to everybody on the line, as you consider bidding on opportunities, ask questions. And it gets back to what Aaron and Jim and Craig said earlier about making contact, being proactive, making the relationship, or forming the relationship, and enabling it to be a two-way street. It's authentic, and it's the most successful way to do business, I believe. So I have one question actually that prompted just coming out of that answer. I don't have an answer on parking, although I would imagine that anything that you can do to ease parking woes would be much appreciated. How do you handle permitting at UBC? Because, and the reason I ask is that when we hosted YVR back in October of 2019, we learned that they have their own permitting process. Does UBC have something similar or not?
You're on mute. Knew it was going to happen once.
There you go. We have our own building permit department. They work under a completely different arm, called campus planning, and all the permits are issued by their office. It is a blessing. I think Craig would echo this. The speed at which we get permits is significantly faster than you might out of the city, having worked in both environments. And as much as they are arm's length, they're accessible to answer questions. Craig will probably speak to the way they do the major projects. It's a little different with the CRP, but on a lot of our small projects, we're dealing directly with the chief building officer at UBC Permits, and they treat it just like any other city would, albeit accessible and fairly quick. So we're really blessed that way. Somebody came up to me actually the other day though and said, the only issue is it doesn't give us any time where we're waiting for permits to finish our drawings. So he was an architect.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's a bit of a development utopia out here is often sort of what the developer community calls UBC, because we do have this sort of internal authority having jurisdiction. I would say from a trade and CM perspective, permitting should never be on their radar. That's certainly something that our group, as the owner's rep, takes responsibility for, as well as the designers. And we make sure the permits are in place so the contractors can be as successful as possible and go as fast as possible. But smaller things like a streets and landscape permit for the art student center, we had to do a bit of testing, and I submitted a permit, and I think within less than 5 days we had the ability to have a rig out on site on a landscape digging into it. So that turnaround time to have a streets and landscape permit in less than a week, I think is a credit to our efficiency out here, and it's like I say, it's a blessing. We don't take it for granted for 1 second, but we do think it's an easier environment from a permitting perspective.
Outstanding. Yeah, no, that's good news. That'll be music to everyone's ears. So that's good news. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I'm just going to take one last look at the chat line. I don't see any further questions, so I'm going to wrap this up. So I just want to say once again, thank you to Aaron, to Jim, and to Craig and your teams for preparing for today's presentation and for making time to present the details and to answer our questions. We will be pushing out this recording and the slide deck within 24 hours. So I would imagine that you'll be inundated with new contacts probably tomorrow afternoon or beginning tomorrow afternoon. So I wish everybody well, and I hope that there's some good business comes out of these connections. So thank you again to the teams at UBC Infrastructure Development and also UBC Properties Trust. We appreciate your time. Thank you. And before I wrap up here, just a couple of things that I need you to know on our horizon. David, if I can ask you just to flip over to the next slide. There we go. So as I mentioned, during COVID-19, we've changed up our schedule because, of course, we have the ability to do things virtually and more nimbly. So we've moved our division meetings and our infrastructure series events to monthly. So on August the 12th, Craig, are you listening? We're hosting a meeting with our 3 divisions. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to be hosting our 3 panelists, Jason Kieselbach, Michael Geller, and Alan Haig. And I'll moderate that discussion. So we're going to take a deep dive into what the prospect is for high-rise residential or residential generally as a result of COVID-19, and what does that mean for the private development construction sector? Because many of our members build high-rise towers, and many have been cancelled and/or delayed. So we want to understand a lot more about what's happening in that market, and also to understand the financier's perspective and hear from them. So that's going to be a really interesting session, August the 12th. 7:30 until 9. And then a month from now, on Wednesday, August the 26th, we are hosting British Columbia Institute of Technology, BCIT, and very like UBC and others before them, they will be coming to present their capital and maintenance programs. They've also got a lot on their books, and we're looking forward to hearing what they've got going on. And when we get to those 2 events, we'll then tell you what's coming up in September, which is currently being cooked. So I hope to see everybody, at least your names, on the participants lists for those 2 events. And meantime, I ask you to stay safe. I ask you to continue to lead the way and help us all to keep BC's curve flat. And take good care. Have a good rest of the Wednesday, folks, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. See you for now. Bye-bye.